Hi everybody, I hope you're doing marvellously well. Guess where we're at? Yes, the AES show at Javits Center in New York in a beautiful, absolutely gorgeous October day. So without further ado, let's get going. AES New York 2024. Paul, how the devil are you?
The devil's
Good to
fine.
see you.
The devil's fine.
Somebody wrote on a video recently, said, Warren, you've got to improve your awkward male hug. Was that awkward?
Kids
Maybe
these
I'm
days
just-
aren't born with love.
What's new and nutritious? What have you been up to, apart
Well-
from putting Louis Vuitton? Look at this.
One of the guys held it up here for just a second to see if it fit, and it was upside down just for
Yeah.
a second. And then somebody took a picture of it,
And that's
they
everywhere
posted
now.
it, and my wife called up and said, it's on upside down.
Yeah.
No, none of the guys noticed, but the girls noticed immediately.
So it's a 7A.
Yeah.
7A.
Yeah, 7A, yeah. Who's 7A?
Marvelous. So what is new? What have you got? What are you doing? What are you
Well,
working on?
we got a couple of things. We've got a new mic preamp that fits in the console. This is going to go as an option in the console.
Yeah.
It's got selectable gain and then a trim. So
Nice.
when you're tracking, you can get back to where you were.
Nice.
You know, and if you got to redo something, it's following this design where all of our mic pre's have selectable gain and a trim.
Nice.
So that's kind of like going to be our thing. Now we've got several different versions of this mic pre coming out, and it's going to be determined by this colored ring around the XLR. So we're going to do light blue, red,
Okay.
green, stuff like that. So we'll have, that's the model. So we're all going to follow this concept. Because you can see all these switches are in line, all the buttons are in line.
What are all the different pre's? What are their characteristics?
Well, you have the Sunset Sound one, which is the
Course.
dual 990
Tootie.
nickel, which is the Tootie, which is
Yep.
world famous. This right here is called our Ref Pre. What this is it's a transparent mic preamp that has
Yep.
a lot of gain, but it has a ribbon mode that when you turn that on, it's got a 10 dB extra gain, and it's for
Nice.
ribbon mics. And if you like the
Nice.
sound of your ribbon mics, this right here is nice sounding, but it doesn't color it. But it's not like it's just sterile. It actually has a nice tone to it, but it's not something that gets in the way of anything.
Presumably good for SM7s,
Yes,
etc.
that's what it's designed for.
Yeah. So
So
dynamics
this
as well,
one right here
no
is going to
range.
have a transformer in, and
Yeah.
we have a nickel steel blend transformer out. But this is going to be my new op amp. I'm designing a new op amp for this.
Look at you.
Yeah. So, and then we redid all the graphics, and the whole product line's got new graphics. So everything's kind of coordinated. And then this is our new EQ. This thing right here is really nice. It's proportional Q. Mm-hmm. So it's like 2 octaves wide, and as you go up, it narrows. At 12 dB, it's an octave, and then if you go to 15, it's a third octave.
Okay.
And instead of shelving, what I did is I put a wide switch, and so wide is a wide bell.
Right.
But the thing that's nice about it is that, you know, with a shelving equalizer, it's always 12 dB per octave when you're going into it.
Okay.
This right here, if you're just boosting a little bit, it just lifts it. But the reason I didn't do that is if you went down to a lower frequency and you boosted it a lot, it starts to roll off. You don't get all that high-end buildup and all that low-end buildup.
I see.
So that's why I did that. Now the middle two bands are really cool. So you get a ring and a drum. So you turn this up all the way and you sweep it till you find the ring.
Sure.
But because it's proportional Q, if you cut it a little bit, it's going to cut out everything.
Yeah.
So we have a third octave button that you flip that in and it
Nice.
locks it at a third octave.
Nice.
So you can notch out and thing, and you can do that pull tech trick where you.
So would you call
boost-
that a semi-parametric?
No, it's just proportional Q. But you know the thing,
No,
the
that's-
interesting thing about parametrics is that.
Because they were all the rave when we were kids, and now nobody cares.
Because, well, the thing is that people don't understand the concept of
Yeah.
proportional Q, and proportional
Yeah.
Q turned out to be a very musical related process. Now,
Sure.
if you take and cut a proportional QEQ 2 dB and you fill it with water, as
Right.
you cut it more, the water never leaves the level. It's always the same amount of energy. It
Sure.
gets narrower and deeper.
Right.
And so when you're mixing or you're tracking or something like that, it doesn't allow you to get into a lot of trouble. And what happens with a parametric is people don't understand the relationship that you should keep with a parametric. You could always,
Right.
boosting a little bit, you keep it wider. If you're boosting a lot, you narrow it. And you very seldom narrow boost something. But people do that. And then what happens when you master it is the mastering engineer has to pull that out, and it's pulling it out of everything.
Yeah.
So this is kind of like a safety equalizer.
Sure.
You can't get yourself in trouble, but it does have buttons that you can do surgical things.
Yep.
So that's the new EQ. This is really nice. And then of course this is the module we discussed before. You know, it's got insert, it's got a blend, it's got a high and a low pass sweep filter. It's got our EQ that we call a TQ, which is a tilt style equalizer,
right,
a Baxendale filter.
Yep.
Then it's got the 3 mixed buses, and over here the cards, you can have whatever op amps and transformers you like, and you can have them as 3 selections. And then you got pan. The new version of this now has a DAW loop that if your DAW is in 1 and you hit this button, this channel, now the lower half is monitoring, the upper half is tracking.
Okay.
So you have the filters, the insert with the blend, and all your sends to track with. And it gives you 2 inputs for tracking, so you can blend 2 mics together. So that's the thing. And then when you switch that in, it automatically switches this in for your monitor fader.
Okay.
But you can hit this button here and you can flip the 2 faders. So now your panner and your buses are your monitor. And then when you release all this, your faders are exactly where they should be to start building your mix.
Wonderful.
And this is our new automation system. We've been working with Tangerine. This is going to be a fader system, but if you hit this button over here, these all lock at unity, and now this can be a controller, and you can shift it, and
It's still nice.
It is. These are really nice. They're TKD faders, but so this is now a controller.
Great.
So you can have your track name and everything like that in this, and this is your mixing, instead of having a regular controller, because now all the faders are fixed at 0.
So this is post DAW, or is this controlling inside the DAW?
When you're doing it in a DAW, you typically set up a send as pre, and have that go to your D to A's, and then that feeds the console.
Yeah.
But if you're mixing in the box, and you want to retain it in the box, although the Tangerine system does save to the DAW, but what you do is you take this and you switch the faders into fader to 0, and now this just becomes a controller, and you can shift the faders all around and do your mix as you would in the box, because these are now just controllers.
Great.
So yeah, that's the cool thing. So
all the years that I had the SSL, I was always looking at the Tangerine and thinking, yes, but I never pulled the trigger on it.
The thing that it's doing, the most important thing that the Tangerine system does is it creates unity between all the automation systems. Because a couple years ago at NAMM, he had an SSL console, he had a Neve console, he had all the different consoles, and they were all tied together. And even though they all had different fader scales, you could do the group master over here, and all the buckets would move.
Nice.
And they were all dB-wise in sync.
No, it's very, very smart. I think this is refreshing and makes sense to me to come into something. How can I put this nicely? The positive way is say the legacy systems.
Right.
The thing is, I had an SSL. Eric assisted me for years on an SSL. I mean, the amount of frickin'.
Yeah.
I need to mute that channel.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And if you start with something fresh, you don't have to take all of that legacy products that come with it.
No, and he's taken the 9Ks, which have those big boards in the back that blow up, and then they're worth about $1.
Yeah.
He eliminates all that, and now the whole console works again. So it's a nice system, and it does give you a unified system, and it stores with the session. So if you bring it up and it's mixing in the box, the fader moves are translated.
That's the word. It's that unify, as opposed to the proprietary systems that you have to learn from one console to another
they did it. Everybody did it because they wanted you to not mix there, and it's like that's not how it works.
We don't need that anymore. No, this is great. I love what you do. This stuff is always phenomenal. The reason why I got excited about op-amp, of course, is because of your legacy with API. So you're going to take all of that knowledge. What are you bringing to it that's going to be different then?
Well, when I did the Tonelux op-amp, because I did 2 op-amps with Tonelux and a transformer, my belief is a lower gain op-amp is better.
Okay.
And there's a couple things about op-amps that people don't understand, and this is going to get a little nerdy, but
that's all right. I'm sure
when you run an op-amp at unity gain, you're not really running it at unity gain. You're feeding back the output to the negative input.
Right.
Now, the negative input, the gain is determined by the feedback and how you divide it to ground.
Okay.
So if you ground a negative input, that op-amp will go to full gain, and it'll scream like a banshee. So if you take the output and you hook it to the minus input, what is the op-amp doing? it's at full gain.
Right.
But because you've got a wire there, it's inverted and it's summing and it's canceling, so it's at unity. But
Right.
internally, that op amp is screaming its brains out.
Wow.
And that's why they say op amps that are unity gain stable, because unity gain is not unity gain. It's really all the gain fed back out of phase so it comes out unity.
Interesting.
So what I do is I
didn't
made
know
yeah, and see, that's the thing a lot of people don't know. So if you
Yeah.
just take like an op amp and you just put a 10K resistor for the feedback, the op amp's running at maybe 12 dB a gain, and it's unity because there's no divider to ground, but the amp is happy and it sounds really nice.
Great.
So I went with a lower gain op amp. So my original op amp was like 75 dB, but I would never do a wire to do unity. I would always put a resistor in there, and it always sounded happy, you know. And then I did a driver for the op amp that didn't have gain in it, so the transformer was very, very stable because it didn't interact with the amplifier, because there's a lot of interaction between a transformer and an op amp. So my new op amp is going to be kind of a blend of what I learned from those. It'll be a single op amp, but I'm not using large output devices. I'm using several small ones in parallel, so it's faster and it's clearer. And it's a blend between Class A and Class AB, because there's a point when you go into Class A, there's a point you go from Class AB to Class A that it doesn't improve anymore. And anything you do beyond that is just heat and current. So I'm going to find a spot where it's nice and sweet, but it's not Class AB and it's not Class A. It's kind of in the middle.
Interesting.
And that's going to be the op amp that's going to power this transformer. Meters, it's also by Tangerine, and what this is these are LCD panels, and you can do bar graphs, you can do different types of metering, but this is going to be our new meter.
Paul and I were going through the faders, which is absolutely amazing. We were talking about fader automation, and what I love about it is that you're doing it on a brand new product, and you're not having to deal with proprietary systems from different companies. So you can do something that's written a lot easier to use, a lot more simplistic. So that's lovely. But the meters thing is really interesting.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what's going on here.
Well, basically, getting good quality metering made out of needle metal and is not available anymore, or too expensive, or it does only one thing.
Right.
It's a one-trick pony.
Right.
VU, PPM,
This does everything.
This is everything.
Great.
It's a screen with a DSP chip inside at the back, just processing the data it's receiving and making any ballistic, and the screen does any graphics. So if you merge this together, you get any metering system.
And with the software, you can have it adjust to different release times if you want to.
Everything. Background color, graphics, steps, color range, text, everything can be changed by the user if you want, and create presets.
Amazing.
And then save to Pro Tools as the plugin that we have to control them.
Nice.
So when you open the session,
every session, every person has their own settings.
Exactly.
The way they want them to be. Well, I love VUs. I think we all do, because yes, we want to see where the peak is, but we also want to see where the overall energy is.
Exactly.
And yeah, absolutely gorgeous. So do you want to show us a couple of different modes?
This is a skin we did for Paul.
Yep.
With the +6 at the instead of +3.
Yep.
But we also played with Won't Be Long. Yeah, so the more classic look, a bit more of a color, a light effect wasn't, but that was a sketch we created. And,
That's great.
And then you've got
I love this, man. I love the production. So now just refining sound.
the bar graph mode.
We recognize that from our SSL.
Well, we call it the Borrow.
The Borrow?
Borrow. Well, it's a blend of different companies' graphics. We just said this is what we can do, but it can be any. The top scale is 0 dBFS, but it could be +18 or +20.
Okay, great.
So that's the switch between the default product we came first for the SSL replacement, because people want to have the plasma out.
Yeah, because the plasma is like half the bill, half your electricity bill.
Yeah, and
we turned our plasmas off.
And you can kill a tech guy that tries to repair them because they're dangerous. So, and then you've got a standard SSL ish. We need to work on the color balance, but you have it doesn't fit that on the SSL. The meter bridge is bigger, so we didn't scale it. But you've got the 4 LEDs, which tells you you're in VCA mode, you're in group, your input. So this gives you the equivalent of the SSL retrofit.
Nice. So obviously for Paul, it's designed to fit into this console. Are you going to be selling these as like rack mounts? As how are you going to do it?
Yeah, the plan is to offer this in different formats.
Okay.
For manufacturers, they can fit them themselves, do the plate,
Great.
And then have their looks if they want. For the SSL, it's a drop-in replacement.
Oh, it is great.
Yeah, and
So take out the plasmas and put these in.
Yeah,
Nice.
and also as a standalone product, we're
That's what I
going
was
to be
thinking.
coming out rack mount, desktop,
Nice.
sideways, big views. Some people ask us, can you put it sideways so I get the left and right with big one in the
Right.
center section? Said, yeah, we can do.
That's nice.
It's just
There's something comforting when you walk into a studio and you see VUs moving.
Yeah. So the point, and then Custom 75, other company
Right.
want to use them because SciFam is selling less, I would say, meters these days.
Sure.
They were the supplier for the world, and then it's getting not possible to, I would say, economically possible for manufacturers to introduce those.
Right.
So
I
that's
understand.
that's what we.
So I don't know the cost, but comparatively between buying VUs or buying something like this, what's the sort of
Real
price?
VUs or Chinese VUs? Because
I don't know. You tell me.
Chinese VUs are moving needles. They're not VUs. They're
Right.
not. They're indicators.
Right.
So you can get for so cheap, but they don't tell the truth.
Right.
They're not
Okay.
VUs. Good VUs are twice the price of this.
Okay, so this is half the price of
It's
of
half
a
the
real.
price-ish.
Wonderful.
And we are trying to go even lower than this if
Well,
we
this is-
optimize production.
It's good because I don't, and many other people don't want this world to disappear. So if we can get in a world where we get both, we
Yeah.
can blend what's great
be-
about
the
digital,
best.
which is great about analog, because 90% of the people I know walking around here, we love this. We love the tactile feel, and we love being able to go, oh yeah, you know, I just want to pan this over here, I want to turn it, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's quick, it's intuitive, and it
Yeah.
also feels you have a connectivity to the music. And
Yeah.
VUs to me have always done that, because the slower the response for me, it just gets that feeling of what the energy is, rather than just indicating peaks.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
The thing we're working on is ITU 170 loudness measurement integrated as
Nice.
for more of the broadcast side for I would say vocal balance and everything,
Yeah.
compliance. So
Yeah.
it's going to be part of it.
Yeah.
That's the future.
I feel like there's some things that it's great that digital takes over, and then there's other things where I think digital emulating it actually is a bonus, and this is one of them. Good
Yeah.
job.
Thanks.
Good job. Thank you. So we're here with Joe Salvato from Equitech. How the devil are you?
Very nice to meet you. I'm doing fine, thank you.
I've met you before.
That's true.
I remember.
I'm glad.
So I see you've got the world's smallest toroidal transformer here.
Yes, in fact it is.
Have you seen this thing here? Jesus. I can't imagine how much this costs to make.
Yeah, it's rather costly, but nonetheless worth its weight, so to speak.
Yeah, and there's quite a lot of weight.
I think this one weighs in at about 105 pounds, this particular one.
Wow.
This one is an Equitech on steroids, because in general, the smaller units are equally as auspicious, except for the fact that this one has the facilities of having multiple outputs to it.
Great.
Typically, the average Equitech has one in and one out, and then
Yeah.
is distributed through a series of outlets. In this
Yeah.
particular case, it's for the more high-heeled person that wants to be able to have something a little bit more fancy. All the wiring on the inside is oxygen-free copper. They're hospital-grade outlets. We now have a conformal bus bar that was never in the other ones. So it's more audiophile-based. Does that mean it doesn't feel very comfortable inside of a professional control room? Absolutely not. But this is new to the line, and something for those people that have been asking for these features all in one.
For the dumb, myself included, being the dumb, what makes this so great? What are you providing for everybody?
The device takes the conventional power out of an outlet and converts it through the transformer into splitting the power into 60 volts on either side of the outlet. The reason that's so important is because All audio gear that you've ever used in your entire life operates on DC. So as soon as the power gets through the IEC cord and into the your amplifier, speakers, or what have you, it immediately goes through a bridge rectifier. Bridge rectifiers are inherently noisy devices. They cause something called common mode rejection. This is the systemic noise that we're always hearing in our systems, whether it be the hiss coming from your speakers or the anomalies when you raise the lever on a fader in a control room and there's system noise. That's not really the gear. It's the power supply that's driving it across the board. So every time we bring one of these into a studio and we plug it in, the engineer immediately, and I just wait for the comments, is what just happened? This is because they've been dealing with a certain amount of noise floor and things that are inherent in the room, and by using this box, that goes away.
Great.
Now, I heard some mention about people talking about, well, I have a Furman, and what the Furman does is supposed to do the same thing. Categorically, no. Furmans are power distribution devices with some active circuitry that allows them to be able to cure the symptom, not the problem. This is actually killing the problem, because electricity coming in on one side of an outlet is not audio-centric. Right. This is the way it's supposed to be distributed. And up until now, because of the Equitech transformer, which Equitech has a proprietary patent on worldwide and nobody else does. Yes, we'll all hear a scuttlebutt about that Furman does have one that got through the cracks and is made in another country we'll not mention, but that has nothing to do with this product. This device and all of its grandchildren, which it is, are all the thing that you need.
Does this provide consistent, balanced power?
Absolutely. It does not can provide voltage regulated power.
Okay.
It is a dumb transformer.
Okay.
It takes the power in, and whatever it's getting in spits it out. Anything that goes before it is someone else's problem. Now, when we speak to electrical installers and integrators, they say, well, the area has power brownouts and stuff. That's okay. When the power comes, the Equitech doesn't care about that. And some electronics and speakers and stuff do want to operate at full voltage potential. But once it's doing that, the Equitech has already done its job. And it's already now created a paradigm for clean, balanced power. And that's symmetrical power because there's power on both sides of the outlet. We keep saying that on and on again, and how many times we've been able to experience anomalies in control rooms. And when you put this in, even the highest audiophiles look at this thing and said, what just happened? Grammy Award engineers have asked me, so how much does it cost? And I tell him, and he says, hell, I don't want to spend it. And I told this one guy who used to be my boss, says, just go out in your garage, take a Neumann M49 and sell one and buy two of these things. You know, it's that easy. This is more important than the gear that you've got in your closet. This is the device that powers all of it.
Marvelous. How much is it? Now you're talking prices.
I think this is $15,000 for the well-heeled studio owner, but they do go as low as $1995 for a 1,000 kVA unit, which will definitely accommodate most recording studios in their bedroom home settings, of course. Another really weird thing about it is it doesn't ever get hot. And nobody knows that, but I've installed hundreds of them, so I'm here to tell you that I've always waited to go over and feel one or wait for that little fan to come on. It never does, because the transformer is so overbuilt for what it's doing that, in fact, it is just idle.
I have been in so many rooms. Our second to last studio, we used to have brownouts all the time, didn't we, Eric? All the time. And what was interesting, a lot of our older analog equipment didn't seem to care. It dealt with it. But all the computers just shut down.
Clearly, and that is so true.
Yeah.
However, there is an anomaly with Studer AA27 seem to have a problem with seeing 60 volts on the neutral, and they don't play nicely with the Equitech. So for all you friends and neighbors in the yard there, if you have a analog Studer A27, which is proprietarily computer-based, not so much. But that's one thing out of 10,000 pieces of equipment.
Yeah. We had another studio. We had, at one stage, we had three rooms going. Well, 3 studios, 5 rooms. And the grounding problems we had in one of our rooms was horrific. And we went through so many different things. You know, it was one of those studios that was kind of, they kept expanding it. And so they would take a ground wire and turn it into something else. And so I think the whole thing was grounded like in 2 places. It was absolutely insane.
In point of fact, the Equitech is the ground central of an entire studio.
Yeah,
For years, we've always been working with star grounds and isolated and trying to be able to create unified grounds. The Equitech precludes all of that.
Right. Well, that's very, very interesting here. So tell us more. What else have you got?
The other units are the 1R, the
Yep.
2R. Those are the smaller rack units, all running at 20 amp, 15 amp, and 20 amps. You can see that one's actually outputting 24 volts. And by the way, this is powering this entire booth. And
This is powering the entire booth.
Yes, and
Great.
I cautioned the integrators who put the booth together, saying they wanted to bring two. I says, well, I don't know why you want to do that, but it's that formidable,
Wow.
and it's cold.
Oh yeah, no, it's completely cold. Amazing.
So the line itself has been.
And how much is this?
That one is 3,400, I think. 3,600.
So the amount of equipment here, that's pretty comparable to a decent professional
In a
studio.
word, hell yeah.
Yeah, because you've got Paul's incredible console.
Yes.
You got a schnizzle ton of speakers.
Yep. We had a hip hop studio in Uptown in the Bronx, and they had two Ausberger rooms pulling about 7,000 watts apiece through a wall unit, one of our wall units, which is a integral device, not a rack unit, and it in itself was 10,000 kVA, 10 amps,
Yep.
100 amps. Absolutely no problem at all. The wall units are larger, and they have circuit breakers in them, and that's for a complete facility. On a room-by-room basis, one of these would be fine, you know?
A 3400.
All you got to do is plug in the wall and plug all the gear into it, and away you go.
Great. Amazing. Thank you.
My pleasure, Paul.
You rock, Joe. Thank
Very
you.
good one.
We meet in the strangest places sometimes, don't
Yeah, that's just correct. No, how are you?
we? I'm great.
Speakers at the moment
Yeah.
tend to fall into two areas.
Tell me.
People are telling me about new speakers that sound as good as the more expensive ones, but are cheaper.
Okay.
And then there are some of the cheaper companies which are expanding into, a bit more pro audio stuff.
right.
And that is 99% of the conversation, both of which are valid things.
Yeah.
There's very few times that people actually tell me something and say, oh no, this is different, this is revolutionary.
You're really teeing up this
I am teeing
conversation
this
in
up
a
because-
juicy way.
I know, because both you and Jeff, of course, have been telling me that this is a different way of doing things. This isn't just making it
It is.
cheaper or making it more
Yeah.
expensive or doing this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
So tell me, why is this different?
All right. Well, first, a tiny bit of context.
Please.
So you and I have worked together a lot over the years in
Yep.
many different ways. First and
We have
foremost,
a microphone video done at Vintage King about 7 years ago, which has
least.
got
Yeah.
a billion views on it. People
yeah,
love it.
yeah. And
Yeah.
from that, really was born Audio Test Kitchen, my company. So I think people who are familiar with our conversations, they know that we are really into gear, and we're really into communicating the subtle differences and benefits for people. And so my goal with this is just to share what's special about KSD. I joined a marketing agency called Sound Vision Works, and we do marketing and distribution and sales management for brands. So we just got started, and we are super fortunate to be working with this company I'll introduce you to in a second, that no one in the US has heard of yet. So
Okay.
I wanted to start our conversation with this context. Who needs another pro audio monitor? Really?
I was thinking of the two ways that we were going to start this conversation.
Yeah.
And that was my option too.
Yeah, well, okay, let's go with plan B.
Okay.
I'm thinking that too. I'm thinking what is there a new story to tell? Is there new technology to put out there that hasn't been done? And of course, then we have to put it in the context of price as well.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm super excited to get the word out about KSD, because they tick all of those boxes. But the most important box to tick is that, I got into pro audio because my best buddy and I in high school would go around to the stereo shops on the weekends and listen to speakers.
Nice.
So I care about speakers so much, and I love the way that these sound. So,
I do like the way they look.
and the way that they look is
And
pretty
that,
cool.
That can help, I think.
All right, KSD,
Okay.
let's get into it. Believe it or not, KSD was the first company to put DSP in a studio monitor 25 years ago.
Oh, wow.
The very first to use DSP. And so they've been perfecting it ever since. They've gotten to the point where they can measure 300 different aspects of the speaker down to like all the electronic components in it, even the cabinet itself. Every driver, not just the speaker, every driver gets measured and corrected for with a process that they call Equitech. Like IR is in the middle of that. So it's a finite impulse response technology. It's an ultra low latency way to make it so that the sound coming out of every one of the speakers in their line, it's not just the ones we've been pointing at. Every one of KSD speakers is perfectly linear in phase and in frequency response and in the time domain. And that's because of this Equitech technology that's in every one of them.
Okay.
They're the perfect balance of technical engineers and like inventive developers and artists.
Where are they made?
I can't believe I like that's the punchline right there. Yeah. Germany.
Okay.
So they are Germany's best kept secret. KSD is Germany's best kept secret. What we have to show you today is the A200.
Yep.
And then we have the A500, which can be combined. Both of these can be combined with the B500. If you combine the A500 with the B500, it becomes the main master. And with the A200, this becomes the sub reinforcement. But we're going to do some listening. You will notice that the key thing about the A200 is it does not need a sub. It's out of the box, all the low frequencies that you want. But the thing about these A200s is they are designed and tuned to serve current music tastes and production styles. We need to hear all the low end. These go down to 32 hertz.
You say 32 hertz, but flat at 32 hertz?
Flat to 32 hertz.
Okay, flat. Okay.
Totally flat from 32 hertz to 20K.
I'm just very used to people telling me that things go down there, but it's usually,
that's the crazy thing about it. And so this arrangement here, we've seen a million times. We've seen it on multiple other brands. But there's something the two distinct things that are different about KSDs, these are the A200s, is that they are totally linear in phase and frequency response, and they are totally flat down to 32 hertz. Do you want to check them out?
I do. I'm sort of chomping at the bit.
Okay, this is and we're listening through. I love the guys at Grace, and they were kind enough to lend us their M905. We're actually feeding the A200s pure digital.
There's some definite lows there.
Yeah.
As much so that I want to find something really. What can we listen to? So it's really, really tight on the low end.
Let's see here. We can.
This is great.
Totally.
It's kind of floppy down there, isn't it? It's like.
And that's, I think, is part of the nature of the track.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, I'm sure it's the track. I'm going to wander around.
Yep.
Yeah, the low end's pretty insane. They're very directional in a way. I move in there.
Yeah.
Are they cardioid?
Some speaker companies do cardioid by putting like multiple drivers around the back and electronically aligning them.
Yeah.
These aren't done that way. They go as far as they can with the acoustic designs first. All these drivers are built in-house.
Right.
So they have total control over the quality. And I mean, so these drivers are the product of so many years of refinement. What you heard out the back is actually a really special feature of these speakers, which is there's instead of a traditional port, they use like a very, very slender.
Yeah, I saw that. There's really narrow gaps. Yeah.
And so it eliminates port distortion in the low frequencies.
Yeah.
And I think of these as like the best of both worlds between a sealed cabinet and a ported design. It gives you the low end extension of a ported design, but gives you the tightness of a sealed cabinet. I think it'd be interesting for you to hear this same song and go over to the A500s we've been talking about.
Yeah.
Those are considered like, I would call these more like the mastering reference.
Okay.
They are designed to be like ultra linear, just like perfectly flat. Whereas these are designed more to be like deliver what people want in terms of low end and modern production.
I see.
These are just like the ultra flat listening reference.
Phantom Central on these is amazing.
Insane.
Yeah, these are amazing sounding. All right, scare me. How much are those?
As you hear them right now, 11,000.
11,000. Yeah, I mean that's in that realm. Yeah, they're amazing. Yeah.
And Should we talk about? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Tell me how much those the 200s.
Well, see, and that's why I love this because these are 5,000 for the pair.
Yeah.
And which I think is really remarkable, especially when you consider handmade in Germany.
Sure.
Imported to the U.S. That's the landed price.
Yeah.
And so many competitors in this range
do
not offer the total refinement and this much low frequency response. Like,
so you've set the DSP here in this environment.
we didn't have to. That's the crazy thing.
Oh, you didn't?
I was blown away. So the way that you're able to actually tweak any parameter of the DSP is through this. This is called RC, stands for remote control. It's optional, and you can dive in and change a number of filters and level controls, and it can end up being your monitor control too. One cool thing about it as well, as I knock over our booth cards, is if you have a pure digital connection out of your DAW into directly into the KSD digital input,
Sure.
you can use this as your monitor controller.
Okay.
And have like 100% digital signal from your DAW right through to your speakers. So right out of the box, your question like, did we have to tweak them for the trade show? I did nothing.
Okay, it's
I did
interesting.
nothing.
It's interesting.
The last person who was here asked me to turn up the top end on just these speakers. There's like a slight boost in the top end. I can go flatten that out right now, but one cool thing is that there's just a simple bass and treble on the back to just do like a low and high shelf.
I see. Okay, so where's flat? Oh, I see.
Yep. So check this out. This is all done in the digital domain. For the whole show, we've had these here, but the last person wanted to hear a touch more of that tippy top.
Yeah.
So all I had to do was walk back here. Yeah, exactly. He's like, hey man, I want like a little bit more like 8K and up. So I came back here, went like that, and he's like, that's perfect.
Yeah.
So we can flatten them back down, but we've been listening to them totally flat
I'd be
here.
intrigued to have that flat and actually do that.
Let's do it. That's actually how I had set them up initially, because they are so generous in the bottom end.
Let's go back to that track. Instantly better. Perfect. Yeah. Like, I'm still hearing that ooh, but it's not overtaking it. It was just a bit too floppy. Let's go back to these. Closer. Yeah. These sound. I mean, you definitely hear that. It feels like almost an octave below, doesn't it? Yeah.
I think I know what you're saying about the low end, the floppiness.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's in the track, and what I love about these speakers is that they're revealing that.
Sure.
There is that kind of extra gush in the bottom end in that track, so.
I think actually, regardless of the low end, and I totally agree with you with your points, I do like this kind of 700 to 1.5K forwardness on these on the 500s.
Bigger A500s.
Yeah, I think for me, for mixing, that's a lot of area that I'm going to focus on.
I think these are much better at projecting that to the listening position. I've noticed when we're not in a trade show context, because there's so much of that mid-frequency that's kind of being sucked up in the air right now. These also should be about a foot wider position for where we're sitting right now. So I think the Phantom Center would be much better.
And probably, looking at they're just passing my ears.
What you're describing in the mid, I hear that coming from these. Typically.
Quite a marked difference. So it's another great discussion point to sit in the equilateral triangle is probably here. And it's not supposed to be aimed at your ears, it's supposed to be just passing left and right from all the acousticians that I've ever spoken to that I trust. I don't know if you've been using this from Peter Gabriel's new record.
Oh, I love Peter Gabriel's new record.
The Court. This is insane.
So that's the spike. The spike mix.
Yeah, and this is full stereo. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So I'm used to that being very 2K.
Right.
And those are really nice. But I know you explained right at the get-go about how these won't have that little extra oomph underneath.
Which ones?
The wide ones.
Oh, the big,
the 500s.
Do you feel it?
I feel a little bit, but I feel like if they had just that little bit of 30 to 40 underneath, they could be like the most perfect speakers.
So every time I go into a mastering room with like speakers that are taller than me, I'm shocked at how not exaggerated the subs are. And we're so not used to what flat really sounds like. So that's what the A500s are all about, is flat. But this,
I do love them. They're fantastic.
So this has a number of different, you can put whatever filter you want in this. A low shelf, Bell filter, change the frequency, the width, all that stuff. So you can do those final tweaks, you're hearing them totally flat. In this
I love the way
context.
they're sounding. Yeah.
You can tune just the top, the A500, to get more of that bottom end. It's there. It's just that it's not as pronounced.
Yeah.
These also go down to 32 hertz. But if you want even more bass extension, that's when you get the main master by adding the B500.
Oh, I see. So that is the sub, as it were. Right.
So,
$5,000 makes sense.
$5,000. That's, it's not cheap. 11, I think 12,000 for these. 11 or 12. We'll have to double check that. That's not cheap.
No.
But at the same time, I do have to look at it in the context of what else is out there, and that is delivering this level of quality. And I invite anyone to go and compare.
Well, for the 11,000 ones, I don't hear any fault in them.
Right. Yeah.
Quite often I'm presented with speakers, and I try to be as transparent as possible when we're listening, where I go, I really love them, but there's a dip in 700, or there's a little bit too much 2K, or I don't hear that. All I want to hear is just like a little tiny bit of underneath.
Yeah.
That would be it. But looks like they sell the subs to go with them. But as they stand, they're phenomenal sounding speakers. Really, really amazing. The babies, what are those?
I'm glad you brought that up. Okay, so this is the other side of the family. So this is their whole coax line, or coaxial.
Okay.
What you're looking at is actually a separate tweeter inside the midwoofer. And like I was saying, KSD designs all of their drivers in-house.
Yeah.
Designs and manufactures them. So what's super special about the way that they designed the shape of this mid woofer, it acts as the wave guide for the high frequencies as well.
Yeah.
So what you have is the high frequencies, the mids and the lows, all dispersing in the same cone.
Right.
So it has and that has two benefits. It actually reduces the negative effects of bad dispersion, which is typical of most speakers in typical rooms, which means like you can have a bad room sound better when the dispersion is so perfectly correlated like that and together.
Yeah,
so,
in a bad room, if you've got high end going in all in the worst possible place, it's just going to be exaggerated. I totally understand.
Thank you for reminding me that this is a German speaker company. These are super popular in post-production facilities, TV, broadcast, immersive,
I was about to say,
systems.
it looks like it's an immersive kind of.
And we're just helping them to branch out from Germany.
Are they commonly used in conjunction with their other speakers in immersive setups?
And so that's the thing. That's when I was the thing about any immersive setups is that dispersion. The dispersion pattern is super important to get an accurate sound field built. Yeah. And so there's actually a whole range of coaxial speakers in different sizes.
Yep.
So these are the smallest ones. These are the babies, the C5s. And then you've got the C8s above that and the C100s. So in combination, you know how it's kind of...
So those are the C5s?
These are the C5s.
Okay.
You know how like typically Atmos rooms are built with like larger LCRs, and then like for height speakers they'll use something smaller?
Sure.
That's what's great about the speaker line is that you can have like point source sound with the coaxials, this perfect dispersion for Atmos setups, and have the ability to scale them in size for your room, or scale them in size for the application in the sound field that you're building, whether they're the sides or the heights or the fronts.
Let's hear them.
Yeah.
And so are they on...
Your instinct to lean closer for these to get in the sound field, same thing with these.
Yeah. So the characteristic between these two is very, very close. Obviously doesn't have the extended low end.
Right.
Obviously doesn't have the extended lows of those. I can imagine a lot of people might be buying all the floors with those and maybe doing all of the ceilings with those.
Totally. And if you want the sub extension, there's the C88 subwoofer that goes with all the coaxial line. But imagine like the small near field reference, think Oratone, but with all the frequencies there coming out in perfect linear phase and totally flat down to the frequency they're capable
of.
Those are $2,500 for the pair. So they're they're not, the cheap reference. They're like the close, the very ultra near fields.
I really like the sound of these, like immediately like the way they sounded. I think the mid-range forwardness of it is good for my ears. The slapback on Peter's voice is really evident in these. The mids are really, really tight. But the mid characteristics sort of initially reminded me of the middle ones. I really wish these tiny little microphones could showcase how good these small speakers sound.
And what you're doing, like moving closer in context, is so important, because I think that's something that people can miss, like in a trade show context.
Oh, it's like so hard to hear.
I was thinking about bringing these closer on some stands so you could have them more like they're meant to be set up in your studio. But so you leaning in is exactly how they're meant to be heard.
I honestly think you'll sell bucket loads of those.
Yeah, it's such a almost like a, what's it called? Like an oxymoron.
Yeah.
To have the small near field reference that is perfectly flat. That is like.
Well, for the mid range, for 99% of the mixing I would do, I would be really happy to work on that. And then of course, I want to check my low end, I want to check my relationship with my kick and the bass, etc., or whatever, low synths and all that stuff. But for 99% of it, the way they're sort of mid-rangey forward without being too offensive. They're not NS10 mid-range forward, but they feel closer to like a classic, that pair in the 90s, which was the 1032s and the NS10s, which every studio had. And they just had that kind of, they have that without being offensive. Honestly, I'd love a pair of these. I wish I could hear the others in the range of those three. It's insane how much loads. And I hear the piano and the bass guitar hitting together. So you go just dong, dong, really beautifully. Obviously, Chad's one of the greatest, arguably, mixers that ever lived. Between him and Mr. Clear Mountain, who's on the other side, 20 feet away from us. Yeah.
I'm glad you're taking the time to dive into these, because I think people are kind of missing what's magical about the coax.
There's no way I would expect a little box like that to sound that good.
I saw a video of yours the other day in my feed. No. So what I loved about it was I think you guys put together I've been seeing some of your videos are trying to give people like a great bit of nugget to help them figure something out, like make a leap in thinking.
Sure.
And I think you were talking about one of the greatest things that unlocked your mixing potential was understanding the low end better.
Sure.
And that got me thinking about the context of these speakers, because as I said, I've been like a kind of a speaker fan since before I ever started working with music. Curious to hear what you think about this. Having been working as an engineer for about 35 years, I keep coming back to that the one most important thing to me is being able to trust what I hear.
Sure.
It saves time. And it makes it much more likely that I'm going to achieve what I want to. And I've made the mistake so many times of working with an audio interface which has inferior conversion or inferior headphone amp, or working on speakers or in a compromised room where I believe
the headphone amp is actually quite a big one.
Yeah,
a lot bigger than people think.
I talked myself into thinking that no, I can overcome it. I can hear past it.
Yeah.
And every time I switch to a great monitoring situation, I just kick myself, because I'm like, now you can hear it.
Yeah.
Now you can actually, do your job as an engineer, express yourself, and achieve the result that I have in my head. So,
sure.
$5,000 is nothing to sneeze at. $2,500 for the small coaxials, $12,000 for the A500 reference. I just think about the time savings and the fact that this is not a small margin of difference. This is not one of these 5% difference things. This is one of these it makes a 100% difference to you as a creative engineer, as a mixer. There's nothing there's no better investment than great hearing, and whether that's through your monitors, through your monitor controller, your headphones, the headphone amp, the converters. So I would implore everyone out there to make the biggest possible investment you can in what you hear.
Sure, I agree. I think you're going to sell bucket loads of these babies. I think they're remarkably good sounding. Really good. I can imagine an Atmos room with those would be phenomenal. Yeah. And even though they're not cheap, they're on the more affordable for a professional to build. Because at the moment there's a lot of really great competition in the lower end to build inexpensive Atmos rooms, and of course there's tons of incredible speaker companies that will kit it out for $70,000. I feel like you could do really well in the mid price there between the cheap.
It kind of is in the mid.
and compete with the big
Yeah.
boys that are $70,000.
And the nice thing is these guys cut no corners. So you can get the absolute best speakers made in the world. I mean, there's
Right.
lots, it should be to taste. That's totally true. You should pick the speakers that work for you, for sure, and
Yeah.
work in your room. And by the way, we'll ship these anywhere to do a demo.
Great.
We've got an office in LA, so you
Great.
can, we'll deliver them, put them on your meter bridge, put them in
Yeah.
your bedroom
Perfect.
studio, whatever. So you can check them out yourself, because it's got to match, you know.
Yeah.
You can work with them for a couple of weeks and see if they work for you. But
I
the C100s
really, really want to hear the big ones in the small range.
in the coaxials, yeah, the C100s.
Yeah.
The C100s, so we know that the small C5s are $2,500 for the pair.
Yeah.
The C100s are for the pair. But we just did a shootout with like the top brands that you would expect. A guy who's been doing it, for 30 years, whatever.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, I'm ready to,
Right.
get my upgrade. And it was between these and a similar kind of package of like top brands you'd expect. It was
Yeah.
just hands down. It was just like,
Sure. It's
put
the low
those
lows.
away.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's you do not need a sub for these.
don't need
to
a
hear
sub for
everything.
those, yeah,
But
yeah.
because you've got this dedicated
Yeah.
mid-range as well, like
Yeah.
all that detail is there. All
Yeah.
that detail is there.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, for the hip hop, maybe the EDM guys, but definitely the hip hop.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense.
There's a benefit to having all the frequencies as well. Like I'm a total believer in subs when you
Sure.
need them, and of course KSD obviously has some sub
Yeah.
systems as well.
Yeah.
But the closer you can have all the frequencies coming out of one place, the more accurate it is, and the fewer problems you have in your room. So by having a full range speaker that goes down to 32 hertz
Yeah.
flats, it's a real benefit to the accuracy with which you can mix the bottom end.
Gentlemen, how the devil are you?
Doing great, thank you.
Khan, what a great last name.
Khan!
Yeah.
If you're
well,
a
Nick
Star
Khan.
Trek fan.
No, Nick
What were you
Khan.
thinking? Oh, sorry.
Japan.
I'm
bass
sci-fi,
player.
your music.
Oh no, I'm sci-fi too.
I'm actually bigger than all that.
Oh,
No, I'm just kidding.
you're bigger than Nick Khan and the Wrath of Khan.
Yeah, no, actually not at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure being here with you. Thanks for having us and talking about
Great.
this new venture we're in.
Will and I have known each other for a long time. What's cool about what we're coming together to talk about is
Yes.
Will and I are part of a new company.
Great.
And we're called Sound Vision Works, but we've both been in the industry for a really long time. And what's really cool about what we're doing is we have the opportunity to work with the people who create the tools for creators.
Great.
So we're talking about the people who make, the microphones, the outboard gear, the consoles, the converters, the power supplies, the software. Will comes from Burl. That's how he and I know each other.
Okay.
Every brand that we've encountered, like my background, Vintage King Audio, you and I met there years
Sure.
ago. Everything I've done in the industry has been about, connecting the tools and the tool makers to the tool users. And so Sound Vision Works essentially is a vehicle to do that. Like, we get to talk to creators like Paul Wolff, someone who has been living and breathing audio design for his whole life. So we're talking about, 40 years of actually making tools for people to create. Equitech is one of the brands that we work with. Equitech 30 years ago revolutionized power for the studio. We get to work with KSD 25 years ago. They're a German company that
Been
no
around
one
25 years. Wow.
Yeah.
well, no one in the States knows about them,
Yeah.
but in Germany, they invented DSP for studio monitors 25
Right.
years ago. And what makes them tick is different than what makes Paul Wolff tick, is different than what makes Martin Glassman, the creator of Equitech, tick.
Great.
And the fact that we get to honor their stories, which are all unique, and they all have this unique vision for products. It's so cool. It was probably 10 years ago at NAMM. It was maybe my first one, and I got to go to the Tech Awards. And Pete Townsend was the honored speaker. And what he said was, addressing the crowd, the Tech Awards, it's all about the people who make the gear. And what he said was, I flew all the way from England and accepted this invitation and wrote the speech to come here to talk to you because it was so important to me to let you know that without the tools and things that you create to enable me to create, I wouldn't have created some of the music that I made.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So at Sound Vision Works, we want to do the same thing. We are super fans of gear creators, gear designers, these brands and these companies.
Paul's a great start. I mean, he's talking of NAMM, I think 5 years ago, NAMM, I remember walking around. Slade put out the mic. He created the mic pre. 2T mic pre for Sunset Sound. Sound Techniques console. And it was like all these things everybody was talking about was like Paul had a hand in all of them, all in the same year. Right. And they were like 3 of the 4 things that everybody was most excited about. So, no, I've been a big fan of Paul's for a long time for obvious reasons. And so it's great.
You know some about the backstory of Wolff, and every one of these brands, every one of these gear makers has a backstory that's important to like why a product is what it is. What and I think that for a lot of these products, when it kind of can appear the same on the surface, or maybe it's like what makes really them different. Once you kind of peel away these layers at like the origin story and what makes the designers tick, I think that's such an important part about like connecting with the gear and helping.
Did a Tyrannosaurus Rex just eat that stage?
Yeah, I know.
It just suddenly went. It was like, oh, da da da. Silent. I'm keeping him.
It's the new T-Rex plugin.
Yeah. Hey, put ching. See what he did there? Even Eric's laughing. No, this is great. Well, congratulations.
Yeah, thanks so much.
So how long were you at Burl for?
I was there for 12 years, and I'm going to kind of talk in your microphone over here. I think that something that I really bring from the history that I had with Burl Audio was, no compromise and put out an exceptional product and to support it really well with everything you have, because when you have anyone in the field, especially with a converter in that particular case, you have some people who are relying on that piece of gear. Right. And so you need to really take care of them. It's not just to sell this thing and then move on to the next. And I just had someone who would come to the KSD booth and say, hey, I was looking at this pair of speakers on Reverb, and can you help me get the support? And I said, well, yeah. And I would rather do the right thing than just try to steer them into me getting a sale. And so to me, doing the right thing means taking care of that person and connecting them to the dealer. Right. And so in starting this company, one of the main words that we've used over and over and over again is integrity. And that means really taking care of everybody on every level. And so...
which is tough to do. I mean, when you're busy and you're doing stuff, so actually...
I think that
following through is really important.
It's the right thing to do, and I think it's what creates kind of, lifetime customers. Yeah. And beyond lifetime customers, it's just the right thing to do. And I think that we're really guided by that. And I think there's a real incredible value. To me also, this feels to me like really we get to kind of reinvent how we want to do things. Times are changing, as we know. We're talking now about, Atmos is now almost an old conversation. We're talking about AI. There's all these things that are changing in industry. And I think that from our position, we get to look at, okay, here we are as an industry. Here, we're post-pandemic by these many years. Things are changing, and how can we address these changes, to being kind of agile and current and do things the way we want to do them.
Wonderful. Yeah. Marvelous.
And Will is talking about more of the distribution and sales management side of what Sound Vision Works does.
Right.
So that's the services that we offer. We realize that like a lot of these brilliant designers and brilliant companies are so good at imagining and creating cool gear. We facilitate getting it to, I was going to say getting it to market, but to me it's like connecting the right piece of gear with the right customer or the right creator with the right, tool for creation. And so we're just about, making that connection, and that's what I think of marketing as, is making that connection. And Will, on the sales and distribution side, is about facilitating that through the network that we know, like, all the great retailers that are out there. And it's such a small world and small business. It's like, this is an extension of us continuing just to get to work with our friends, like friends at different retailers and distributors around the world. We used to talk with you, which is awesome because, you help us tell our story, get it out there, and we're trying to do the same thing for our clients.
Yeah, I mean, I like people, so that helps. Yeah. And I think that's what this is all about. It's very much a people business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much, really, for giving us a voice, letting us help get our message out there. And
Right. Well, we'll have links down below, of course. And, congratulations.
Thank you. Oh, by the way, we're based in LA.
Yeah.
And we, like any gear that we have, it's so easy for us to just bring it to your studio. Right. That's a huge difference. We can connect you for a direct experience. Speaking of Audio Test Kitchen, I'm going to bring that up because you and I have talked about it so much. We're actually incorporating, as we go forward, Audio Test Kitchen's ability to do like a virtual demo of gear to be able to do comparisons and A/Bs, because that's a really important missing piece a lot when people are buying online. So yeah, we're aiming at that, as Will said, we want to be contemporary. We want to be like meet people where they are now, and
Great.
here we go.
Excellent. Well, thank you.
Thanks, Warren.
Pleasure, Warren.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good to see you
Eric.
again.
See everybody.
Marvellous. So long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen, au revoir,
Aloha.
adios. Aloha.